that can see.
Where there's thunder, there's lightning. I am John Nada. Last time we kind of talked a little bit about people trying to convince you how great marriage and relationships are. And I talked a little bit about my friend who's kind of in a nexus point, if you will, in his life on what direction he'll go next. He's at that crossing roads. And that got me thinking about his disposition. And he doesn't seem to see the plank in his eye for the speck. Now, what I mean by that is he is all down about not having a relationship, depressed, and feels empty and without validation and lonely as a result of that. And he thinks that he's in a bad position. Yet he doesn't see that he's actually better off than he would be otherwise, if that makes sense. In other words, here's a guy, he doesn't have any debt. He's got some education. He's an intelligent person, could go anywhere in life, has the tools to be successful, has the tools to create. He's a very creative person and has all the freedom in the world to do it. And yet he doesn't quite see it that way. He doesn't see it as a gift. He sees it as a curse rather than the gift that it really is. And so why do these other people try to convince us or try to convince you and me about the merits of marriage and relationships? Well, a lot of it's that optimism bias we talked about last time. Maybe these people do have okay relationships. But from what I've seen and what many other MGTOW have seen, is that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. When will the marriage end? When will the relationship go sour? And a lot of this also has to do with the sunk cost fallacy. That whole misery loves company thing. You look at somebody who's been married one or two times before, and now they're courting somebody or dating somebody or whatever, and already planning that next marriage. And it's like they're trying to convince you of the merits of that when it hasn't even worked out for them. And so it's, I guess, a psychological deal where they, have expended so much time, energy, and effort into things that they feel like to cut their losses they would be more into it, and would take a loss on it, so to speak. But another big culprit of things is advertising. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, and especially around Valentine's Day, but I've noticed it a lot here lately with the commercials and things, not only on television, but also on the internet. Advertising, you see it everywhere. Advertising is a big culprit, convincing you that there's something missing, convincing you you're not complete, convincing you must have that validation. You must be in a relationship in order to be of any value. And if you want to hear some interesting thoughts on advertisers and advertising, check out Bill Hicks sometime. I got to thinking about this Twilight Zone episode. They were having a marathon the other day, and the episode, Time Enough at Last, Henry Bemis. One Henry Bemis. In the beginning of the episode, he's harangued by his wife at home. He's harangued by his boss. Typical blue pill guy, basically being ordered around at home and work. And anybody that's seen the episode can see that at the end, this nuclear bomb hits or whatever. He happens to be in the bank vault at the time, survives the blast. And now he finally has time to read his beloved books that his wife and his boss and the other people in his life thought was a waste of time. It wasn't their hobby. It wasn't their interest. Therefore, it's a waste of time. You should be at work, working for the boss. You should be making money. You should be the provider, the workhorse. And now Henry Bemis had all the time in the world to read the books that he wanted to and enjoy his life. And that's kind of what I'm likening my friend unto. He doesn't realize it yet, but maybe he'll come to that realization that he's got all the time in the world, all the freedom in the world. And what can be more valuable than freedom? Certainly not trading all that in hopes that he's going to meet somebody and have this relationship and that they're going to take all of his fears away and they're going to make him feel secure and they're going to validate him and make him feel happy about life. I mean, he doesn't realize that that's just not the way it works. It's never worked that way. Validation and happiness and peace is up to you. Anybody that's familiar with the story of Spartacus, the Romans had to stop Spartacus. Here's this slave. He takes off, takes a bunch of other slaves with him. They hold out on this mountaintop. He's setting a precedence of defiance. Now, why do I mention Spartacus? Because what we're really dealing with here is master morality versus slave morality. And the Spartacus story, like I said, is one of defiance. We as MGTOW are like Spartacus. We can all stand up and say, I am Spartacus. In the sense that by opting out, by not playing the games, by going our own way, we are, whether we intend to be or not, a defiance to the status quo, a defiance to the society, a defiance in the face of gynocentrism. And though we may not intend to rebel, we simply want to go our own way. Rome, so to speak, doesn't see it that way. And as we've seen with Japan and the herbivore men, the government there is now taking some steps, though small possibly, in order to corral the guys back onto the plantation. We are a remnant for now, but possibly in the future we may be bigger than a remnant. But MGTOW, us as MGTOW, we're a remnant right now. Spartacus was not a slave. He was in the sense that he was enslaved by the Romans, but he did not have a slave mentality. He saw his freedom. He fought his freedom fought for his freedom with blade and waded in the blood and ultimately paid the price for trying to be a free man and for seeking freedom. Slave morality, it subverts. It doesn't seek to transcend to the master's level, but makes slaves of the master. Master/slave morality. There's two moralities at play here. Freedom versus servitude. Gynocentric society that this is the slave morality, whereas MGTOW is the master morality, if you will. The freedom versus the servitude. What the society wants is a workhorse, a provider. They want us to absorb the debt, so to speak, but in a real sense, absorb a lot of the college debt that these women have. I dated a girl that had it had to be at least $40,000 or more in college debt. And it was always in the back of my mind that if we got married or, something like that debt would then become my debt. And she, more or less got this worthless degree. I mean, she got a degree that she wasn't even using after college. She ended up working at, it wasn't anything that was a career type situation. And so the essence of slave morality is utility. The good in the eyes of slave morality is to do what is most useful for the whole community, not the strong. So think about that. That is gynocentrism, the hive mind mentality. The individual interests are not taken into account. Think Hillary Clinton, takes a village to raise a child. The powerful are generally few in number, where the weak are usually numerous. And so the whole idea is the slave knows he's not in the position of the master to, force his will onto those below, but rather must subvert and in a sense, absorb the master morality into the slave morality, thereby changing it to a slave morality. And this is what we see oftentimes. I mean, we've talked about it a lot in the community, and it comes out quite a bit in the shaming language. You know, we're all Peter Pans or man children or whatever the du jour is, the dish du jour. And the herbivore men have seen it a lot as well, you know, that they've tried to shame these guys back into the raw deal that they're looking at and that we in the West are looking at as well. And not only that, but also now kind of moving the government into position to try to offset all that. And so, again, we're back to people trying to convince us that marriage and relationships are a good thing, that married men live longer, that married men are more happy, that married men are more fulfilled and more validated. And it must all be true. I mean, all my friends and neighbors and parents and society at large is telling me this, but they're trying to subvert us into slavery, essentially, into being a workhorse, plow horse provider, whatever. Now, if we're not careful, we can make the mistake of thinking, well, I'm not fulfilled without somebody, or, well, don't you want to pass your genes on, or don't, you know, I mean, there's countless arguments or shaming language, you know, / tactics or whatever that try to subvert you from going your own way. And it's the provider role versus the going your own way philosophy. And it's like what I mentioned earlier with my friend. We oftentimes, and a lot of guys oftentimes don't see until they take the red pill, until they wake up, how free we are, how the sky's the limit for us to be able to do whatever we want to do. Retire early, start a business, travel, enjoy hobbies, enjoy this one life that you have. And rather than seeing it as, well, I don't have this and I don't have that. Well, I'm not married, I don't have kids, so I'm not fulfilled, or I'm not happy, or, you know, that is the line that we see from advertising. That is the line that we see from, you know, not in every case, but a lot of times from family members, from clergy, from society, from leaders, from friends, and, you know, all those other things. And, you know, that brings up another reason why a lot of women don't want their husbands hanging out with their single friends anymore. The whole Spartacus deal, the Spartacus effect, if you will. And so we have to be shrewd in this to not be obfuscated or subverted into buying into that and seeing that we have the real value, that we see things for how they are, number one, which is valuable in and of itself because it helps us navigate life. That we don't get shamed into neglecting ourselves, but rather looking out for ourselves because everyone else is. So why shouldn't we? And that we see this vast amount of freedom that we have, the ability to be free, truly free, financially free, peace of mind free, all these things that I feel like are possibly the most valuable things in life and are taken for granted on a daily basis. So let us as MGTOW keep our wits about ourselves and look at the many benefits that we have, but namely that of freedom, and namely that of our ability to set our own course and to go our own way and to do what we feel is best for us and best in life. This has been the Days of Thunder. I am John Nada, and remember, you are free to do as you're told.